Hey everyone, this is Daniel. In today's video, we're going to look at how to use Power Automate to enhance Microsoft Syntex. Now, this video builds upon the one that I released last week, which is Introduction to Microsoft Syntex. So in case you haven't seen that one, I highly recommend you go watch it first. Okay, so in this video, we're going to focus on how Power Automate can take all that data which Syntex has extracted and work upon it. So the first thing is, once the data comes in, let's send the user an information saying that, hey, you uploaded the receipt and we have all the information, so everything is good. However, if for some reason, if Syntex could not process the receipt, then we need to do two things. First of all, take that one receipt and go put it in another folder just in case. And then also let the user know that, hey, something was wrong with the receipt. Can you go and upload another one? So all of that is going to be covered in this video. Stick around, it's really important. But first, here's my intro video. So let's get started. And as a quick recap, here is the SharePoint site that I use, which is powered by Microsoft Syntex. This is where I go and have all my content monitoring that is happening. And over here, if I go to my models, in the models, you will actually see the receipts model. This is actually one of the models which is there, out of the box ones that I used for my receipts. And when I click on this receipts model, it opens up another tab and it actually tells me that, hey, here are the actions if you want to actually go and build more models. But as you can see, these are all the extractors, the content type columns that I had talked about, the files that I use for the analysis to basically do some training. And then finally, where have I deployed this model? So this model has been deployed in a site called projects. And if I hover on it, you see the URL. And over there, there is a document library called receipts. So when I click on it, it opens up another tab and actually takes me to that site, directly to that folder. And as you can see, I have been using my receipts folder extensively. I actually go ahead and use that OneDrive app, which I showed you in my previous video, upload it over here, and it works so well. And I've actually been tweaking it as I go along. So therefore, in this video, I want to focus on this, is that once the documents are uploaded over here, and Syntex does the processing, well, how do I use Power Automate to enhance that functionality? So if you can look over here, once the Syntex has processed it, it does its best job, right? When I upload it either through the OneDrive or directly over here, I am the one who actually tells what is the category, because I've got different categories. I've got store, if I buy something from a store, if I go and fill up gas, a grocery, restaurant, like all of these scenarios, I'm actually the one who has to do two things. Upload the file itself, which is, or take the image of it, and then I go and give the category. That is all. Everything else is done by Syntex. Another important thing, which I may not have mentioned last time, but it's important I mentioned over here, is that when you're uploading it, it always takes the default content type, because receipts by default is a document library content type. So every time I first upload it, the content type by default is picked up as document. And it's completely fine. You don't have to get worried about that. You don't have to do anything about it, because after Syntex has processed it, it automatically goes ahead and changes that to a receipts content type. Just something that you need to be aware of. All right, so it is done and all the information comes through. What I do is I actually go ahead and leverage two of these columns for my Power Automate flow. And one of them is already available out of the box, which is basically the extraction that is done over here. So here is something called as confidence score. By the way, the confidence score is not something that I had to actually go and put in. This is automatically added by the SharePoint Syntex standpoint. So I actually leverage this confidence score. If you've already guessed it, I am using this confidence score to basically tell me, hey, how confident are you that this extracted data was accurate? So what I do is that my confidence is built upon anything which is 90% or higher. I'm pretty confident about that. However, if it is less than 90%, you need to let me know that. And therefore, I use Power Automate for that. The second thing I do is I also go ahead and make sure that if for some reason this confidence score is blank, then something is wrong. That Syntex just could not process that document. So I'm going to go and use that confidence score as well. But in addition to that, I'm also have created another control column, and I call that as a low confidence notification. So this column actually builds on the other one. So if I actually did go ahead and send out a notification, then I want to actually put that, hey, this column's value, let's go and set that to yes. That way I would know that, hey, this was actually set as a, the confidence of it is low. Something had to be done over there. But if the low confidence notification is set as no, which means that the confidence is good, no notification was sent out. So it might sound a little confusing at times, like, okay, low confidence notification, no, yes, what does that mean? Just understand that no means everything is good, no notification was sent out. Yes means something is wrong and a notification was sent out. So this is low confidence notification was actually a column that I went and created. So let's take a look at that. Settings, library settings. In my library settings, I go to more library settings. Over here, you actually see the two content types. This is the default document, and this is the receipts one, the one that actually comes on the Syntex side. And over here in the low confidence notification, it's actually a choice type column. And you can see this was actually by the document library one. It didn't come from the receipts one, the one that we got from Syntex side. No, this is the one which was there directly from the document library, which I actually went ahead and added that manually. So here we go. Here's how I actually do it. I click on the low confidence one over here. And over there, it is a choice type, and I put it as a no or a yes, and I leave the default blank. So here is an overview of the receipts document library that I already talked about last time. And this is where I'm actually going and uploading all the receipts. Now, in addition to this, for the sake of the Power Automate flow, I have another document library created, and I call it as defective. Defective means that if for some reason Syntex was not able to process any of this receipts that I've uploaded, which in this case, this intentional bad receipt that I've uploaded over here, if this one is not able to be processed, then I will actually want to create my flow, and the flow should be able to at least take that momentarily and put it over here in this library. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually send a notification to the user and saying that, hey, for some reason, Syntex could not process your receipt. Can you go ahead and resubmit that receipt? And in order for the user to not get confused, because if the user comes back to the library and says, hey, but I already see this copy over there, should I just avoid doing it to make any problems? No, I want that original one, the one which is having some problem, taken out from the original receipts library and go ahead and put this in this defective one as a temporary storage location. Because for some reason, say if the user has already thrown away the receipts recycled them, well, at least we have the copy of the original one, and then some manual intervention can be taken. That's the only reason I have this defective library over here. And the only things I've done in the defective library is that it's a document library, but I've gone ahead and added 3 other columns. I call it the original ID, submitted by, and then submitted on. Original ID is the actual ID of the ID from the receipt side. That's the original one over there. Second is who was it submitted by, the actual user, because I don't want it to be, whoever made the flow, but I actually want to know who was the person who updated that receipt over there. And then the submitted on, again, what was the date was submitted on. Now, these are very simple columns, but just for the sake of, simplicity, I'll actually show you what those are. Title is the default column. Description, again, was default for this library. Submitted by is the person and group. Submitted on, date and time. And original ID is a number type column. All right, pretty simple. All right, so now you've seen the 2 data sources, the original receipts one, the main location over there, the defective one, where we go ahead and house the defective one or store the defective locations. Now let's go take a look at the Power Automate flow. So here is just a quick overview of the flow is that we're going to build right now. I set it as a recurrence. Then I go ahead and do a get items. After the get items, I go ahead and make sure that it's all in apply to each, and apply to each actually automatically happens, which we'll take a look at it. But then there's 2 things that happen. That if the confidence score is 0, that means something is wrong, that Microsoft Syntex just couldn't do anything. So if it is equal to 0, which is if it's yes, if it is equal to 0, go do these things. But if it is not equal to 0, which means there actually is a Syntex score over there, then in that case, we need to check to see, hey, is it less than 90% or less than 0.9? If it is less, go do this. Otherwise, go do that. That's all basically this thing does. And I've been tweaking this for a while because this is for a very important personal use. And so now let's go and build this one from scratch. So I'm coming over here to the new flow. And for now, I'm actually going to make it as an instant cloud flow, which is something that I do a lot. If I'm going to be making it as a scheduled flow, I actually first start that as an instant flow, because in that case, I can always keep testing it by not manually clicking that virtual button. And then once I'm good, I'll switch over that trigger to a scheduled one. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to select that as a manual trigger flow. I'll click on create. Here, I'll call that as a low confidence score notification live demo. And I'll leave that as this. And then next, I'm going to go ahead and do is a get items call. So it is a get items, and in the get items, it's actually of a part SharePoint, and I can go and see it's a get items. It's plural, get items. All right, so in the get items, what we're going to do is get it from the projects. And here is where things get a little interesting, because in get items, it is saying, give me the list name. But that's fine. Receipts, even though it's a document library or a library, you can still go ahead and get it in as a list name, because we are still going to be working with only all the metadata part of it, the properties. That's what we're going to be working with. So in this case, what happens is if you come over here, you don't see receipts, you don't see your library, that's fine. Click on enter custom value, and over here type it in, and that needs to be dead accurate, which means the spelling has to be spot on. And in my case, it is called as receipts. So here's what it is. I just do receipts, I go next, and I don't get any errors, which means it automatically went ahead and took that. All right, so now I need to go ahead and put in an Odata query. I just need to basically filter based on what it is that I need. And for me, I'm going to use that control column, because if I have not done anything, if that control column hasn't been updated, which means flow hasn't gone ahead and touched that item yet. And so that's what I'm going to do. So just to make sure, we go back over here to our receipts, and in our receipts, the one that we're going to look at is the low confidence notification. Let's just make sure that we get the correct name actually of the column name. So I come back to my libraries, go to my library settings. It is the low confidence notification. So I click on it. This is what I need over here, the low confidence notification. So I'm going to hold my shift button, and I'm going to highlight that whole thing right there. I'm going to do a control C. So I've copied it, come back to my flow, and right over here in the filter query, I'm going to actually go and say low confidence notification equals null. And that is basically my initial step, is I went in and got my get items done over here. All right, so now I'm going to actually just go ahead and save it. Next is we're going to do our first condition. So I'm going to click on the plus step, new step over here. I'm going to click on condition, and over here I'm going to say the confidence score is null. Not the low confidence notification, the one that we did in Odata Query, not that one. It's the low confidence score. It's actually this one. When we go back to that reports, not reports, the receipts library, when I scroll a little bit to the right, I want to go ahead and grab this one, the confidence score. That is the one, see? Because we could have used this one, but I prefer to use the confidence score. This is the one that we did for the Odata Query right over there in the get items. But right now in the condition, I'm going to say confidence score. So in the confidence score, we come back to my flow over here, and right there it is called as the confidence score. So I'm going to type that in, confidence score. That's what it is. And the moment I did that, it went and put in apply to each, which we knew because on top was get items. So Power Automate was smart enough to say, hey, there might be more than one. Let's go and put this into the apply to each. And now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to put a little bit more renaming of this. I'm going to say apply to each for null confidence score. All right. This is basically what I do because it just helps me understand. I come back next week, I come back next month, I come back next year. These comments really help me understand what I was thinking building that flow at this point in time. So I'm going to go actually expand my condition. And you know what? In the condition too, I should actually say something right here. So I'm going to rename that, and I'd say that condition is the confidence score null. Over here, I can't put the question mark because if I put the question mark, it actually gives me an error over here. It doesn't like it. That's why I'm intentionally not putting in the question mark over them. All right, but in this case, I'm going to say, okay, if the confidence is equal to null, if it is equal to null, we are actually going to send out an email. That email is going to say, hey, something is wrong with this document or this receipt that you've uploaded. Can you please go ahead and upload another copy over here? See, and this is why it's also important that I go ahead and make these as a scheduled flows. This is not a triggered one based on a document upload, because I do want to give Syntex some amount of time to process it. So I schedule it and do it at an off-peak time. So I know at whatever point in time, 6 a.m. in the morning, I am not there uploading receipts over there. Therefore, I run my flows at 6 a.m. Now, if you're going to use this, say, for your work environment or for other business reasons, pick that one time for all these flows to run where you know that nobody's going to be uploading receipts at that time. So go very off-peak, like 2 a.m. in the morning or whatever works in your best scenarios. The critical thing is do it off-peak times. All right, so I'm going to do the send email over here. And in the send email, I'm going to actually type that in as the send email. It's going to be a send email. And that send email is actually going to go ahead and it's signing in, which is fine. It's going to go ahead and send the email to the one who actually created that item. The create means the one who actually uploaded the original item. So right over here in the get items, if you click on see more, it was the created by email, the person who actually uploaded that receipt, who created that receipt. We're going to send an email to that person over there. And over here, I'll put in some nice information. I'll basically go and say, no confidence score for the D9, whatever was the category value they selected when they did that, the category value for, so no confidence score for the, say it was for the gas receipt you uploaded. So in the body, I always put something like this is an automated email, put it bold, make it like font size 14, and I hit next. Over there, make sure I get that font size back again. I can leave it to 14 because it looks pretty nice. And then I'm going to go and say hi, and then whoever was the created person's display name will do that. And then here I'm going to say the category, which is, category could be the gas receipt or the store receipt, whatever was that category value receipt. Let me spell that up. Receipt you uploaded on. And here I'm going to show that enhancement which is there in Power Automate, which is to help me understand what is the syntax that I want for the date and time specifically. Because here's what it is. If I go and put in that, the receipt you uploaded on, and I will put in the created, if I put this in over here, that date is not going to come back, back nice and clean. But I need to run that at least once, because once you run, it'll actually give you that original timestamp format. It's a little different format over there, but I need to copy that timestamp format, because once we have that format, we'll come back over here, we'll click on this expression, and we'll use this functionality to format your data. It's actually such an enhancement, and it makes life so much more easier because it just spits out the expression for you. But we need that original syntax. So I'm going to run this as this. We'll come back and fix it. All right, so I'm going to actually just now do a little copy and paste over here. Basically, I've got all this text which is already ready, and that's what it is. It tells me the date was created, has a null confidence score. This means that AI has had some trouble, blah, blah, blah. And I'm telling them that, hey, can you go ahead and send us another copy of your receipt? This time try to avoid as much shadows as you can, smoothen the bends as much as you can, just giving some advice. But I'm also telling them, hey, if you recycled or trashed the receipt, then just let us know at your early convenience. We've already got a copy of this one. Sincerely, your friendly neighborhood AI. That's basically the nice email that will go out over there. Next steps I want to do is now take this file, which is there from our receipts folder, and move it to that defective folder. So this is what I'm going to do. Is first, if you've done any of this, copying files around from one SharePoint site to the other one, this will be very familiar to you. But if you've not, then hey, this is a good time to also learn. Because the first thing you got to do is you got to go and do something called as the getting the file content. And that's actually a full process available over here. So in SharePoint, when you go and type it in, and I go and type for get file content, there is this section over here. So it's SharePoint, and in SharePoint, there is, if I click on the SharePoint, I search for get file content. There you go. That get file content, that's basically the one that I need. Now, get file content sometimes gets a little confusing because all it does is gives you the site address and the file identifier. So you get confused, like, I've got the site address. Where is the one for the reports library? It's like, or the the document library. It's like, no, you need to just know what the file identifier is. File identifier is accurate right down to the file level. So all I need to do is now go ahead and say which is my site. So it is projects. Now for the file identifier, make sure you get actually the identifier. I have seen people make mistakes where they go into, assumed ID was the identifier, so they actually went and got the ID column. No, don't do that. Get actually the concept called identifier. And just to be sure, come back over here to the dynamic content and type in identifier. And you will see this identifier. It's coming from the get items, which is the one we just created above. So go ahead and paste that in over there. Now this will go ahead and get that file content. Next, we are going to now go ahead and do a create file in our defective folder. Now don't get confused by saying that I'm not creating a file, I'm just moving a file. That is correct. You have to use the create file action even though you're moving the file, all right? So right now, I'm going to now come over here as a next action, and I'm just going to say SharePoint, and in my SharePoint, I'm going to actually click that in, and here I'm going to say create, and it's going to come and say the create file, all right? Not create item, create file. So here, I'm going to again go back to the same site that we have. It is my project site. on the folder path, you want to click on that folder and select the defective folder. So in my case, it is the defective folder. So I went and selected that. Don't add anything else over there. Don't go and put in a forward slash, or don't try to over imagine things over here or over engineer things over here. Just leave that as is. Now the file name and the file content type, well, that's the important things that you got over here. So on the file name, you want to actually search from the get items. There is a file name, but there's two file names. There is this name, and if you read on it, it says that file name of the item document. Don't use that one. Use the one which is file name with extension. That's the one that you need. And then the file content type, well, that's the one that you just got from there. So you select that and you get the file content type. So now you've got both of them covered. Just to be safe, I'll go and save that one over here. So we created the file. Well, now I need to just update the properties of this one. Remember, because in the defective one section, we went and added these columns: original ID, submitted by, submitted on. So we need to add that as well. So let's go back now, and now we're going to go ahead and do update file properties. So I'm going to go to SharePoint first. Let me just search on SharePoint. And in SharePoint, there is something called as update file. But in update file, it's not the update file, but it's the update file properties. That's the one that we want to go and update. So first I got to go and do the simple things. I got to go and say, what is the site? Click on the site. What was the library? Well, in our case, our library is the defective. And in the defective, what was the ID? This ID is from the create file. So right over here, create a file, go and get the item ID. And then over here, this original ID is coming in from the original get items ID. So I got that. The submitted by claims, basically that one is also coming from the created by of the IBL, but not this create file. It is coming from the get items. See, in the get items, who was it created by? So we're going to go and grab that person's name over there. And in this case, sometimes that becomes easier. Let's just go and type in created by. It says the created by, it's coming from the get items, which is perfect, but don't get this created by. Go ahead and get the created by email. And then right over here too, on the submitted, in the submitted, again, go ahead and actually make sure that we get it from the get items. And in the get items, it was submitted when? Submitted on was the time when the actual file was created. So I go and click on this. Description, we don't need anything. So we went and now I'm going to click on save it, but save it because I don't want to lose any of my work. So it's saved. And now that we've gone ahead and created the file, updated the properties, now it is safe to go ahead and delete it from the original receipts one. So that's basically the file step. Is I come back over here and I now say SharePoint. In my SharePoint, click on that, and I'm going to go and say delete. And in my delete is going to be the delete file. Delete file, again, it's just the same two things: site address and the file identifier. Site address is the simple one. It is the projects. File identifier, well, that's from now the get items. Don't get confused over here because we've got a bunch of actions coming up. You might get confused with which one, where should I get the identifier from? Remember, the identifier is coming from the original get items, all right? So what I do is, in this case, it's first of all just easier to go ahead and type in what it is that you're looking for. It says, I'm looking for identifier, all right? And so right it is. Let's see, this identifier showed up. You might actually click on that. Don't. That's not the one because that's coming from the file update properties. The one I want is from the get items. I selected that. Now I can go and click on save on it. And we've actually just completed almost half the work right over here. Well, what happens if we do have a score? Well, then in that case, we've got another sub condition to add. So let's go and add those steps. In there, I'm actually now go ahead and put in its first condition. So I will maybe call it as a sub condition right there. This sub condition is the condition for low confidence score. So here it's actually going to be what is the confidence. It is the confidence score value. And over here, I'm going to say less than. Now I know in the document library, right over here in the document library, this confidence score, it is in percentage, but in the flow, you've got to deal it at the decimal value level. So 90% is actually 0.90. So in our case, the confidence for the condition we got to say is less than 0.90. Is 0.90. Well, if it is less than 90%, well, then we've actually got to go ahead and send an email out. So in this case, I'm going to go do that exact same thing. Is I'm going to come back over here, click on this new action now. I'm going to go and say send email because it's actually coming from the Outlook connector. So that is what it is. Send an email. You can do that. And that is going to go back to, again, the person who created that email right over there. See, get items created by email. That's the person it is going to. Over here, I'm just going to go ahead and actually put in some text. The text basically says your receipt confidence score is lower than expected. And here, I'm actually going to go and put in some information now. So I'm just pasting this text over here for the sake of making sure I don't make too many mistakes. I'm going to go and grab that one, right? Paste that over here. I'll actually take out the block from that right now. This looks good. Over here, and this needs to be a dynamic email body. So first of all, I got to say hi, and the hi is going to be from the get items created by display name. All right, so that's got that over here. Then I need to actually put some verbiage. So I'm just pasting it over here because that's basically what it is that you need to see. I'll actually highlight that a little bit bigger so we can actually see what is going on. So I'll make that, I say, size 14. In the size 14, we're just basically explaining what this email is all about. We're saying that the confidence score was less than 90%, and it's possible that the AI might not have reviewed the entire receipt, or that 90% is still accurate. So just telling people to go in and take a look at that. And then in addition to that, we're also going and actually showing all the metadata that is extracted. So for this one, I'll actually just go and put in something such as a merchant name. And that merchant name is actually a column type that we had created in the SharePoint Syntex side. See the merchant name over here, right there. And then make it nice and clean where, you can highlight this section over there, go ahead and make it bold, things like that. But that's basically all that you need to do. I put in the merchant name over here. If in my demo that you saw before over there, I put in all of these things: merchant name, address, tax, total, so on and so forth. Just, add all of that wholesome amount so that the user can actually see. If the user gets this email and says that, hey, there's actually pretty accurate, I'm getting everything as is, then we're good. You don't have to worry about that. But what we're also going to do is go ahead and update a item in the metadata in that receipts folder. So in that receipts folder, I'm actually going to now go and say update item. And actually, I should have put SharePoint over there, but see, by default, Power Automate does a really good job with the IntelliSense. I just typed in the update item, but it already knew it's from the SharePoint side, and that's what it is, update item. So in the update item now, all I got to do is find out what is the SharePoint side, which is projects. What is the list name? See, the list name, again, I just write that in, and that is going to be, and then in the receipts, what is the unique identifier? The unique identifier comes from the get items. And then finally, right over here, in the low confidence notification value, yes, we are sending them an email. So for this case, go ahead and put that in as a yes. That's basically what it is, all right? So now I'm going to click on save. So you guessed it that we went and did this for yes. We've got to actually do the exact opposite on the other one over here. That's the last piece that we got to work on. Come back now to my add an action. Over here, I'm actually going to go and search for my send an email, sending an email. I can go and say send an email right there. This case, it's actually going to be very similar because all we're going to do over here is also go ahead and get the created by email, making sure they come from get items. And over here, I'm actually going to go and put in something else. I'm going to say that your receipt was processed successfully. I'll also go and actually put in this, do some copying and pasting over here, right there. Make that a little bit bold, make it a little nice and big. These type of fun things that you can do. Not fun things, but you can, all these important things that you got to do. Hi, again, the hi comes from the created by display name. And here it is exactly the same thing. Basically, you just go ahead and put in a simple text saying something like this: the receipt you uploaded has been processed successfully using Microsoft Syntex. Here is an overview of the current data. And there, go ahead and put in as much information as you want. So for example, we'll just copy this one section right here. It came from merchant name. So let's go and put that merchant name over here. Right there, I'm going to say merchant name. Make it nice and clean, just like we did it over there beside it. Highlight that, make it bold. That's one. Next, we can go and say the, merchant, say address. We can, merchant name, not merchant name, but the merchant address. So I can go do that, grab that and see merchant address is right there. This is basically what I was saying. Going and add as many of those as you can. So just basically fill in all that you think it's necessary. Again, in your scenario, it might be different, but this is basically what it is. This one is saying that the confidence score was less than 90%. Can you just take a look at it and verify that? Well, in this case, it says everything is good. And here is just the extracted data that it did. And over here, I'm going to actually do the exact same thing. I'll actually go and grab that SharePoint list again, and we'll update the value on that item over there. So on the SharePoint side again, I come on SharePoint and I get the SharePoint update item. I could have actually just typed in the update item right there as well. So right there, grab that just to make sure everything is good. I'm going to look at it from the projects. It is the receipts. So I'm going to do that, receipts, like that. And then the ID comes from the get items. And in this case, we will put the low confidence value notification. I'm going to put that as a no because the confidence is very high. So I'm going to, therefore, this is not a low confidence notification. This is just a regular notification. And therefore, this value needs to be set as no, while this one was yes. Went ahead and saved it too. And we are actually done. So once it goes and finishes saving off, I can just go and close this. Let me just go and make things a little bit smaller just to make sure how everything is looking. It's actually looking pretty good. So what I want to do is now let's go ahead and do a test. But let's make a good guesstimate as to how this flow is going to run for the existing receipts that are there. So let's go to the receipts library. And over here, as I can see, okay, this is all my data that is over here, but I'm going to scroll a little bit to the right. First of all, something has been happened to this bad receipt because it is I've gone ahead and uploaded this. Syntex just can't seem to process that. You and I know I can't process it because this really is a bad receipt. Look at that. It's just something I did in PowerPoint, but to prove a point, right? So I went and now uploaded that. However, we've also got this one receipt that I went and uploaded it. And both of them have one thing in common. They do not have a confidence notification set up over here. That's the important thing. Also, the one which is the bad receipt, it doesn't have a confidence score over there. The good receipt does have a confidence score. However, it doesn't have the low confidence notification. This just tells me that the flow hasn't really run for it yet. So let's go and run that flow, the new one that we just created. All right, so this is the one, the demo one. I'm going to click on save it just to make sure if I already did save it or not. I'm going to go and click on test right there. This is the manual one. And I'll go and do that. Low confidence running. This looks pretty good. I'll click on continue. Over here, I can click on allow, click on run flow. The run flow goes through. We're all done over here. Now it's actually going to go and run. Now, hopefully this will run, successfully the first time. And it did. Dang, we did a really good job. So it went and did the get items, but let's actually kind of start looking in over here. 2 came through. Well, let's go actually take a look at that emails first. So in the emails, I've got the score you uploaded has a null confidence score. The AI does not have that. Okay, that's for 1. And then I got another one for another store receipt. So there was 2 of them for receipts. Let's actually go and take a look at the flows itself. Right there, one of them is running in for the email notifications. And the other one is also running for that email notifications. Well, what just happened? Let's go take a look first. First thing is first is in the receipt. The gas receipt came in. And in its case, it went through and all of that. This was basically the one which was accurate. We were able to go ahead and Syntex was able to process all the information in. Its low confidence was set to no. However, if you've noticed, the defective one has disappeared. That one is actually now right over here. See the bad receipt one? It actually went in and grabbed that one over here. It also went and grabbed another one, which is pretty neat because I was personally only expecting one, but there was already another bad one that it went and grabbed. Now, there's one last thing that we've got left to do, and that is right over here. We got to go back to our email notification, and in that email notification, go ahead and get this little syntax that we need. You see that format which is there, the syntax, or basically the format. Highlight that, go ahead and do a Control-C, because this is that new feature that I want, right? So I'm going to come back over here, and I'm going to go back into our flow. In our flow, directly for the send an email, specifically this one where we want to say the receipt was uploaded on. Now I'm going to go and delete this created by. Make sure it is still in the right place. Go to the expressions. In the expressions, type this in as format data by examples. That is the format by data by examples. And the date we actually want is created. In the created, example value for created, this is where you go ahead and paste that one that we just saw. Hit backspace so we make sure there's nothing wrong over there. And the moment I click over here, it's actually giving me some examples as well. This is awesome. So I'm going to say, okay, it was actually this one. Select that, generate the expression. It looks good to me. I'll click on apply. Got it. It automatically went and put that over here. We'll go and click on save just to make sure everything is good. And we got to do another test too, right? Because we got to make sure that the information is coming in. So just so that we can actually do a test, I'm going to go back to my receipts and I'll just grab this one over here. Actually, I'll click on the edit in the grid view. I'll just take the first one and I'll actually make it no. Basically, I'll make it blank so that now when the flow runs, this one should be able to run successfully. And I will go ahead and do another test automatically. That test. It will click on the test. It's actually going to run. The flow this time should just run successfully. The flow running successfully is not our concern. We just want to go and see when that email comes through, does that timestamp also change? So let's actually just see. It went through only one, which is good because we only had one available over there. You and I both knew that. And so now we're going to go and wait for that email to come through. And right there, the email came through, and this time even that changed over there. It was changing really nicely, and was successfully able to go and get all of that done. So I was pretty happy with how well this is actually working out. Now, one problem I've noticed is that even though those receipts were over 90%, why are they coming in as no confidence score? And I think I already know why. It's something I've seen before. Now, if I go back to my flow over here, I bet in that condition, somehow that condition got wiped. Watch this. If I come over here and if I go into the first condition, you see that got wiped over there. And therefore it was always leaning towards the yes. So all I got to do is come back over here and in its confidence score, I got to search for this confidence score, click on it, click on save. So that way it actually sticks. Saved. Let's go outside again. I'll go another last final test. Let's actually pick something else this time. I'll actually go ahead and say in the edit view, or in the grid view, I'll go ahead and make this one as blank. We'll go ahead and click on exit the grid view. So that way we've got another one for the flow to actually go do some testing with. Then there, go back to our flow one last time. We'll go and run it. In our running, it'll actually go ahead and now do the run flow. The run flow is right there, hitting up there, click on it. It already ran successfully. I anticipate in the get items, it should only go and do one, which it did right over there. But this time, see, it went in the correct order. That means that the condition actually stood and it was over 90%. So it actually was right over there. It didn't go and send that email in the wrong place. It actually sent it right there. The email should have come through already. See, it says now your receipt has been processed successfully, just the way it was working. Our flow worked and it worked really well. So as a quick recap, we went and built a Power Automate flow to enhance the overall SharePoint Syntex experience. The first thing it did is it went ahead and saw, is Syntex even able to go and process it? If it's not able to go and process it, it went and took that receipt and saved it into another folder. We actually went and called that as a defective library over there. It kept that out as a standby just in case the user didn't have any receipts left for that. Then we went and sent an email notification to the user saying, hey, your receipt is just not having problems. The AI is having problems with the receipt. Can you go and upload another one? But if you don't, we have a copy of it. And the second thing is, after Syntex has gone and processed it, let's go and give the user an update that, hey, your data is processed. Here's an email with all the metadata assigned to it. Power Automate Flow does a fantastic job going and processing all of that, giving us the data, sending out the email notifications, and just keeping the end users up to date about all the stuff that SharePoint Syntex has done. So hopefully this video was useful to you. And as always, keep using SharePoint Syntex with Power Automate Flow. Hey everyone, hopefully you found this video useful. And if you did, can you help me help you? Can you subscribe to this YouTube channel? Because remember, I provide fresh content on a weekly basis and it's 100% free. So if you have subscribed, thank you so much and pass the word. But if you haven't, subscribe, click on the bell notification and let the learning begin.